Hi everyone, I'm Hillary with Dominion Tea, and today we're going to talk about white tea. So to understand white tea, you need to know that tea and all of its different types, so white, green, yellow, oolong, black, and pu'er, come from one plant, and what distinguishes those types is actually oxidation. So much like an apple, when you cut into it, it starts to turn brown. A tea leaf, when you pluck it, starts to turn brown. And where that oxidation stops determines the type of tea. So when we're talking about white tea, we're talking about the least oxidized type of tea. So this is usually 5% oxidation or less. It comes from the freshest leaves on the tea plant. So we're talking the bud and the first leaf. And traditionally in China, it is harvested only during the first harvest of the season. So come with me as we explore this tea and learn a lot more about it. So here we have on screen two of the oldest white teas from China. On the left is the Baihao Silver Needle, and on the right is the White Peony. The Baihao Silver Needle is prized because it is the bud of the tea leaf. The White Peony is the first leaf after the bud. What you want to understand is in order to harvest the bud, they have to also harvest the first leaf. So that way the tea plant can continue to grow throughout the season. And then what happens is they separate the bud from the first leaf and create the two teas. And so let's talk a little bit more about Baihao Silver Needle. So Baihao Silver Needle is a really special tea, partially because of how it is evaluated and how quality is determined. So when looking at the needles of the tea plant, and the needles on here, part of what we look for is those silver hairs and that silver coloring. And the reason you want to look at it both before and after you brew it is so that you can see that they're still intact. So a high quality Baihao, you're going to still see silver and those hairs are still going to be there. What happens in a lot of cases in lower qualities is the hairs actually come out in the tea. You're not going to feel them. They're so small and delicate when you drink, but they're actually in your brew. And that's part of what the Chinese believe kept the emperor alive and gave him health and longevity. And so this was always the emperor's tea. This tea is only purchased in China, usually between the months of March through May, and it is typically completely consumed by October. And so it is always considered, you never sit on your Baihao Silver Needle, you drink it immediately while it's fresh. So white tea is not just limited to China. On the left side of your screen is Himalayan white from Nepal. And what is fun about this white tea is it takes the two aspects of the Chinese tea, the bud and the first leaf, and keeps them together. So this white tea, when we go and brew it, you're going to notice is a little bit more yellow in color, but it's also going to have a completely different flavor profile. And on the right side is from Vietnam. So these snow-shone white buds, these are buds for the actual tea branches versus the leaf. And this is a particular aspect of the Vietnamese cultivar. And so this, yes, it is a white tea, even though what you're really brewing is more of a branchy, woody bud. This one's complex. It is a lot of fun, and you're going to see a totally different version of white tea when we brew up this one. All right, so now that we've talked about the white tea leaves, let's talk about how to brew white tea. So white tea is typically brewed at a lower water temperature, so anywhere between 160 to 180 degrees. Now there is an exception. So if you remember those tea buds from Vietnam, because they are woody in nature, you can absolutely brew them up at a boil to start with. And then you can drop the water temperature if you want, or just leave it there, because you're going to do multiple steeps on that tea. And in fact, you can do multiple steeps on every white tea, which you absolutely should, because the flavor profiles are going to change on you from kind of being a fresh cut grass to a little bit more straw and slightly floral. And so you're going to have fun with these teas as you brew them. So a couple things to know when you're brewing your white tea, just to know that you're doing okay with it. Don't be surprised if it's almost clear or if a pale yellow. So they're going to vary, give or take, the tea that you've picked up in that range. It's also going to vary cup to cup based on your bag, because all it takes is one oxidized leaf, just a little bit more oxidation than the rest, to take your brew to a darker yellow versus a lighter one. That's not a problem. They're oxidizing naturally. It's just going to add a little bit more woodiness to the flavor of the tea. The other thing about your white teas, keep in mind, there's a reason the Chinese consume them so quickly. They are going to keep oxidizing over time. That's not to mean that they're going to go bad. They're just going to get heavier in flavor. Some people like it better, so don't discount a little bit of aged whites. And so as you explore your white tea, enjoy all of the different varieties. Enjoy exploring them, and if you've got any questions, leave them in the comments and subscribe to the channel.